I'd like to begin this video by focusing on a portion of the 22nd chapter of the book of Matthew, verses 36 through to 40. Messiah is kind of challenged in verse 36 with the question, which is the great commandment in the law? He answers by saying, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind." Verse 38 reads, "This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." What Messiah is saying here is the whole of the Bible, which is referred to here as the law and the prophets, hangs upon, or is based upon, or is an expansion of these two great commandments. First commandment being love the Most High with all of your heart. Second commandment, which is like unto the first, is thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. So the whole of the scripture, the whole of the law, is an expansion, an amplification of these two commandments. When asked the question in verse 36, this is what Messiah is trying to teach, that the Bible is an expansion of these two laws. So everything written in the scripture is to help us to understand these two primary laws, to love the Most High with all of your heart and your neighbour as yourself. Now I'd like to read a few things, or state a few things connected to the commandments, and hopefully what I say will make sense. So please bear with me as I do so. The camera isn't very clear and the sound quality may be a little poor because my camera is a bit battered now and doesn't work as well as it did when I actually bought it. I did buy a new one, but it's not very good at all. I need to probably buy another camera. So pray for me that the Most High will provide me with funds to do so. So I'm going to read a few things, or some of the things I've gotten written down I'd like to read, and I'm hoping, as I said, that they'll make sense and are clear. It describes in the book of Exodus that the law was given to the Israelites on Mount Sinai. It was not here that the law was first given. So why was the law given to the children of Israel on Sinai? The reason he gave them the law on Sinai was because their ideas had become confused because of their association with idolaters in Egypt. They needed to be reminded of the fact, or should I say, they needed to be reminded about what constitutes the true worship of Jehovah. Was the law in existence before Sinai? It had to be, because if it wasn't, there would have been no sin. For sin is a transgression of the law. The Apostle Paul tells us, where there is no law, there is no sin. Even before creation, the law existed. It was adapted to the condition of holy beings. Even angels were governed by it. After the fall, the principles of righteousness were unchanged. Nothing was taken from the law. Not one of its holy precepts could be improved, and it has existed from the beginning. So it will continue to exist throughout the ceaseless ages of eternity. Concerning thy testimonies, says the psalmist, I have known of old that thou hast founded them forever. The Sabbath of the fourth commandment was instituted in Eden. After God had made the world and created man upon the earth, he made the Sabbath for man. After Adam's sin and the fall, nothing was taken from the law. The principle of the Ten Commandments existed before the fall, and were of a character suited to the condition of a holy order of beings. After the fall, the principles of those precepts were not changed, but additional precepts were given to meet man in his fallen state. So the commandments were in existence before creation, but because of the effect that sin had upon the mind and understanding of man, certain things were not added to the law, but certain things, you could say, accompanied the law, certain instruction to help man to better understand what the law was actually trying to teach. The original law, remember, being love the Most High with all of your heart and your fellow man as yourself. Now, when Messiah is speaking in Matthew chapter 22, he isn't sharing with his listeners anything that is new. He's not sharing with his listeners anything that is new. The great principles of love to the Most High, which he set forth as the foundation of the law and the prophets, are only a reiteration of what he had spoken through Moses to the Hebrew people. This is what Messiah said to Moses as recorded in the Old Testament. Hear, O Israel, The Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. That's Deuteronomy chapter 6 verses 4 and 5. He goes on to say, as recorded in Leviticus 19 and verse 18, thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. The teacher is the same in both dispensations. God's claims are the same. The principles of his government are the same, for all proceed from him, with whom is no variableness, nor no shadow of turning. And that's James 1 verse 17. So basically, Messiah is referring to the law, the Ten Commandments, in Matthew chapter 22 verses 36 through to 40. What he's trying to show us is, in the beginning, before the fall, that two things that we ought to have focused on, or that the beings in existence then ought to have focused on, were the instructions, which were love the Most High with all of your heart, and your neighbour even as yourself. And he's basically showing us that the whole of the Bible, the whole of the law as contained in the Bible, is an expansion of these two instructions, these two rules, to love the Most High with all of your heart and your neighbour as yourself. I'm hoping that what I've said makes sense. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, and pray for me as I humbly pray for you.